All right, Penn State fans, you know what time it is. It's Michigan Penn State time, almost. Bob Flounders, Dave Jones, taping this on a Wednesday afternoon, a couple days ahead of Penn State at Michigan, the battle of unbeatens. Who knows what's going to happen on Saturday? Maybe Dave and I know what's going to happen on Saturday. I doubt that we do, but we're going to talk about what we think about this game. Dave, how are you?
I sure as hell don't. I've gone back and forth on this game all week. Is that what you've done, or were you pretty? We won't give up our picks just yet, but were you pretty sure about this one ahead of time?
You know what? I was sure about it at the end, but it was fascinating when you analyze this game. There's a lot to like about Penn State in this game, Dave. I think that there really is, but I went back to a couple things that I believe in, and we'll release them a little bit later. But I do think this is maybe not your. I don't know that this is your typical Penn State James Franklin team going on the road to face a top 5 team. I don't know if it's your typical situation.
To be more specific, a couple of people you don't believe in. Why don't you just bring it out there?
I'm just not prepared. I'm not prepared to. I'm trying to. It's a slow reveal, Dave. It's a slow reveal. But yeah, it is pretty much 2 people. I'm a little bit. Let's just say unsure of, Dave. We're going to say unsure of, and then we'll get to it at the end, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh yeah, I knew he was going to say that."
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I'm finishing like a really late breakfast. And I had to eat. I'm diabetic, and if I don't eat, you know what that. Yeah.
All right. So what can you tell me about the Michigan Wolverines? I know you gave me like a little bit of a news off the show. I don't know if you can share it, but what do you know about Michigan?
Well, it's public knowledge at this point as we speak on Wednesday. I learned about it earlier, but people probably know about Mike Hart, who had a seizure, the former Michigan running back, who is only 30. I think he's 36 years old. He was infamous for the little brother comment about Michigan State that stoked that rivalry. Back in the I guess that was the late aughts. And he has been the Michigan running backs coach for a little bit. Just signed a new contract in the spring, and he had a seizure on the sideline at Indiana.
Yeah,
really shook up. The running backs who were standing next to him, Blake Corum and Edwards, their backup, I think, were standing right next to him, and he had to be carted off. He has since tweeted that he's doing fine, but it is a seizure. They have not disclosed exactly what's wrong with Mike Hart, but they need an interim running backs coach for the foreseeable future. And that happens to be my brother-in-law, Fred Jackson, who was on the Michigan staff very long time until taking a job in the Ypsilanti School District as, I think, a headmaster of a high school there for a few years. He's 72 years old, still in very good health, and he came back as an analyst just part-time this year and has been having a great time back in the game for the first time. And I think, since Harbaugh took the job, which is 2015. So Freddie's back in the game for the first time in 7 years, and he loves it. I mean, he loves being back in college football, but he didn't expect, no one could have predicted this. And he is uniformly liked and respected around there. So all of a sudden, he's the running backs coach, and what a stable they've got. I mean, it's a pretty good room, huh? Especially with Blake Corum.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Penn State fans, like Dave, last year when they played in State College, it was the Hassan Haskins show. Blake Corum was hurt; he didn't even play, or else they would have ran for more yards in that game, and probably might have been able to separate from Penn State. As it was, Haskins kind of dominated that game, as did Michigan's front four in a 21-17. When Penn State still had a chance to win, and they gave up that busted pass.
Eric All.
Yeah.
Eric All was all they needed. And now Eric All's hurt. That entered into my decision here because I thought Eric All was a special kind of tight end. I think he's going to the NFL. And he is the kind of playmaker that he's a lot like Mike Gesicki in the way that he can do a lot of different stuff, and he can block, but he can block better than Mike Gesicki.
I was going to say, don't say Mike Gesicki and block in the same thing.
But also run downfield as he did. I forget how long that play was, but about 60 yards to essentially win the game at the end. He's a stick-out special kind of player and a threat. And I think in Michigan's offense, he would have been very valuable in this game.
Yep.
They've got a kid named Schoonmaker who's fine. He's good, but he's not Eric All. This is how I see the game unfolding, and you can. I'm not sure about unfolding, but these are the factors I think. Yep. You know that what Michigan is going to try to do. They are pretty predictable. They're going to try to run the ball and throw off a play action. Sharon Moore is their new offensive coordinator. He is an offensive line specialist. When you get those guys as your coordinator, that is what they're going to do. That's what Michigan has done, and they've lived off Blake Corum, who's a really good little running back. I don't know where you put him. I'd put him right behind Mo Ibrahim and maybe even different kind of back. And a lot like Mike Hart. I've compared him to Mike Hart, except he's quicker. He's got more of a burst than Mike Hart ever did. Mm-hmm. Small, and we've been worried about his durability, but man, he had 32 carries, I think, last week again, and he just keeps motoring along. Penn State has to make certain that they can demonstrate that they can stuff that running game, not stuff it, but contain it.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I think they'll trust their secondary to play a lot on islands, especially their corners, and cheat those safeties up, as they did against Auburn. I don't think it'll be that crazy like what they did against Auburn, somewhere in between what they did against Auburn and against Purdue. And if Michigan begins running the ball like they have against other teams, it's lights out because Penn State cannot win the game that way. But if they can force J.J. McCarthy, their young sophomore quarterback, to make plays that they need on 3rd and 4 and thereabouts, I don't know that we know if he can handle that. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. So I think the quarterbacks are so unpredictable in this game because McCarthy hasn't had experience in games like this. Sean Clifford has had a lot of experience, but he's like the Mrs. Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And is that about right? Is that so? So how do you see it?
You're in Sally Field right now, and Forrest Gump in her phony Southern accent. But I got you, Dave. I got you.
All right, go ahead. As Woody would have said, "Come ahead, Bob. You're the expert. Come ahead."
Yeah. So I think obviously the quarterbacks are going to have a significant say in this game. I think it's clearly going to be a game. I mean, I kind of thought the same thing about Auburn, but I was horribly wrong. I just think that this is a game that in the fourth quarter, one of these quarterbacks is going to have to show up. Sean Clifford is a guy that, Dave, I just don't know. Have you seen him play a solid 60 minutes against a good team during his career? It's happened very infrequently. Even the Purdue game, Dave, he orchestrated that drive, but he also put Penn State into a world of trouble right before that with that pick six. I think this is a little bit. I think Michigan is better than Purdue, and I just think that for Penn State to win this game, he's going to have to. This is a statement game for him, and he's going to have to find a way to win it in the fourth quarter. And I've just seen him struggle for too many series this year. It's like, he plays a good half or a good 3 quarters, but that other quarter, you're like, am I really watching this 6-year quarterback play like this? So I have a lot of hesitancy about him on the road against a pretty good defense. And I think that's one issue. There's also James Franklin's history on the road against top 5 teams.
What's that, Bob?
0-6. 0-6 on the road, 1-8 overall. The one win was that magical 2016 game. against Ohio State, and they were down double digits in that game, and they pulled it out of their backside. So I think it's a big game for James, and I think it's a big game for Sean Clifford. One other thing I wanted to mention, Dave, is I know we're going to talk about the defenses, but the total is 52. Penn State and Michigan probably have, if you had to list the top 5 punters in the country, the Michigan punter and the Penn State punter would be on that list. I think both offenses are going to have to go about 85 to 90 yards for a touchdown, unless there's some short field turnovers. And I think it's going to be hard to do against both these defenses.
And you're going to give Moody the edge over Penninger as far as the placement guys, right?
Yeah, I think I am. I really do think that Jake's going to have to make a pressure kick at some point, I think. And I think you will see when these two get into the red zone. I don't think it's going to necessarily be about touchdowns. It might just be about taking the short 3.
All right. I agree with everything you said. I just don't think Michigan is that much better than either Purdue or Auburn. I don't.
Auburn. I think they're better than Auburn.
They're better than Auburn, and they're a little bit better than Purdue. That's what I think. I think that atmosphere there is anything but intimidating. I don't think that's going to play into it at all. I know we've been waiting. Who would you compare Sean Clifford to as an NFL quarterback? I've got a guy in mind. People
or a former one?
A current one.
Yeah,
a guy that people thought, huh?
Carson Wentz.
Well, Carson Wentz had a great 15 games there in 20.
Hey, Dave, Sean Clifford had a pretty good start to his Penn State career, did he not, in 2019?
I was thinking of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
As far as, does that make any sense to you as a guy?
Kirk Cousins is worth $250 million, so I think Sean would take that at this point.
No, I'm not talking about an ability, but I'm talking about their ceiling. They seem to have a ceiling in performance, and when they get up in a game like this, it a lot of times doesn't end well.
Yeah.
I saw something in that performance at Auburn, and I'm not saying Auburn was a great team.
Yeah, they were a physical team, though. They were
a physical team, and they did challenge you much more on defense than they did on offense. I thought it was an easy day for Manny Diaz, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw something in that game that has stuck with me about Clifford at a big moment. I thought he actually played really well in that game, and that was the last time they went on the road in a big game. And I'm counting on him to at least not have the big screw up, the big moment where he loses the game. And I think Penn State's defense is overall a little better than Michigan's. Michigan's getting really good on the edges. They've got a DN named Mike Morris who is really starting to come on. They're not Hutchinson and Ajabo, but I mean they have some good edge rushers now. Penn State's going to have to deal with that. I just think it ought to be worth something of all this experience in these types of games for Sean Clifford compared to J.J. McCarthy, who we don't know anything about how he's going to handle this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I just think that I don't think Sean has to have the game of his life. I just think that Sean, he just has to. He just can't have too many valleys in this game. He can't go 3 possessions like he did against Purdue, where I think they went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and then he engineered the game-winning drive. So I want him to be a little bit more level in his play, and I don't know that this is going to be a game where. I think he didn't even throw the ball 20 times in the Auburn game. Penn State could run it, but they also forced 4 turnovers. I don't know that Michigan's going to turn it over very much, if at all. So it's going to be one of those games where he's got to manage the game, but he's also going to have to make some throws. He's going to have to make some throws into some tight windows. If he does that, I think Penn State certainly can win the game. But I need to see it, Dave. I need to see it.
Yeah, well, I need to see J.J. McCarthy in a pressure atmosphere. He's been allowed to play pitch and catch against all these substandard opponents. I mean, Colorado State and Hawaii and Connecticut. Maryland's defense isn't very good.
Yeah.
Iowa does what they do, but they're not like athletically gifted. In Indiana, I mean, he really hasn't been challenged. I guess Iowa would be the most challenged, but that was what was impressive about that game was the push Michigan's offensive line got against those guys. And again, it was the running game and Blake Corum that pretty much won that game. So I just don't know what you know about J.J. McCarthy. We know who Sean Clifford is. Mm-hmm. We don't know who McCarthy is in this situation. In fact, if you wanted to take any big moments in big games, you'd have to take them from Michigan State last year, and they lost that game 37-33 a lot because of J.J. McCarthy's mistakes when he was inserted in that game. And Cade McNamara has been the big game quarterback who's out. This is a big moment for J.J. McCarthy. He hasn't been there. Clifford at least has. So are we doing the picks now or not? Or
no, we got miles to go, Dave. We have miles to go. The Iowa game where Michigan won on the road, I think Iowa and Penn State defensively, they're a little bit different. Iowa plays that sound defense, that they're really good at the secondary. I wouldn't call them an aggressive defense. I don't know if you agree with me, but they are just they're good at every level. They don't make any mistakes. They force you to kind of go down the field. I think Penn State athletically on defense
better.
is better, and I think they're deeper. And I'm very, very interested to see how Manny Diaz game plans for this Michigan offense. Obviously, we know what the number one priority is, and it's Corum. But I wonder what he's going to do to maybe try and confuse or just kind of give McCarthy some different looks. But again, I think James Franklin made a good point. One of the reasons why Michigan's so good on third down is it's almost always, if they're on third down, they're in it's like 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1. And that's a lot easier to navigate than 3rd and 8.
Yeah, they need to get McCarthy to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. And then let's see what he's got, a non-running situation.
Yeah.
And a guy we have not mentioned in this vein is Ronnie Bell. Now, Ronnie Bell had a catastrophic I believe it was an ACL injury, very beginning of last season. I think it was the Western Michigan game. And it was no tap in at all that he would be back playing as well as he is. But he looks like the old Ronnie Bell, like from 3 years ago. He had a wonderful game against Michigan State 3 years ago and like 150 yards of receiving. And everyone thought great things were coming for him. And then, COVID happened. And last year he just didn't even play. And of all the receivers in this game, including Mitchell Tinsley and Parker Washington, I think he's the most has the greatest upside of anybody. So if McCarthy gets time, Bell can get open. He's not a great receiver. He's not a Jahan Dotson. He's not a David Bell, but he's a very good seasoned receiver, and I think he's the best pass catcher in this game. And we will see if he enters into the decision.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that Penn State's playing its 6th game and Parker Washington doesn't have a touchdown catch. I just think that's a little weird. I know that he's leading the team in catches, but he's had some pretty good games of late, and Sean's missed him on a couple of throws that could have went for touchdowns. But I just kind of feel like he might be a guy that might be a little bit due because he's just too good of a player to not get into the end zone. So I'll be watching him. Dave, we have to talk about one guy for sure because I know Michigan's defense is going to come after him. Caden Wallace, Penn State's right tackle. Olu Fashanu has been a revelation in his first year at starter on the left side. Caden Wallace, even this year, I think, in passing situations, whether it was Purdue or I think, just about every game, if he doesn't get help, he can have some trouble. I don't think he's the most nimble of foot, and I'm just wondering what I think his name's Jesse Minner, the DC, what he's going to do on that right side of Penn State's offensive line if they can get Penn State into 3rd and long, because I think that he's the guy they're going to try and attack.
Yeah, and I think they'll try to attack him with Morris, who is a very impressive, getting more impressive all the time, speed rusher, and he could be a real problem over there. So I think they're going to help him out if that's where they line up Morris. Michigan's defense is better than you think up front. They were better than they were expected to be because they had to replace Ajabo and Hutchinson. Yeah. And they have kind of done that. I know through some channels that they were worried about this defense in camp, and it has pretty much come through. But how would you attack it if you were Mike Yurcich? That's the question, knowing what you know about Penn State's capabilities and knowing that Michigan up front is pretty good. They got another kid named Mozzie Smith who's playing really well at tackle. How would you attack it? Because I got my own idea.
Yeah, so Mozzie Smith is a problem inside. That they're going to have to double team him almost all the time. He was number one, I think, on Bruce Feldman's freaks list at 337 pounds. He's athletically, I mean, he and PJ Mustipher do a lot of the same things for their teams. They're not really going to show up necessarily on the stat sheet, but they're invaluable to the interior of the defense, especially on running play. So if you're Mike Yurcich, I know James is going to want to keep Michigan's defense honest, and they're going to run some inside, but I think off tackle and outside might be the way to go if you're Penn State in the run game, only because it's really, really tough to get any movement against that Smith guy. And I think Michigan, I know there's going to be some games. Mustipher didn't play in last year's game. He was hurt when Hassan Haskins had a huge day, and I think that really hurt Penn State's defense. I'm curious to see what PJ Mustipher can do to maybe stop Corum inside, but he's a guy that's certainly talented enough to kill Penn State on the outside. And I'm talking about, if Jonathan Sutherland's in the game, I mean, that's maybe the side that I might want to attack if I'm Michigan. But I do know if you're Yurcich, I'm sure you're going to see some tempo. I'm sure you're going to see Brenton Strange helping.
There you go.
Caden Wallace. He's their best tight end, and when it comes to doing that, I think he's going to be kind of like a little sidecar for Caden Wallace on third and long, and it makes a lot of sense, right? The other thing, Dave, is I know I'm a broken record, but I swear in most of the games that Clifford plays, he takes one or two nasty shots a game, and it's not they're not always as nasty as the Auburn shot, but he got really roughed up by Michigan last year. He took a beating. It started on the first play, and it never stopped. And I think they're gonna try and test him a little bit that way as well. So I think Yurcich has to be careful against this Michigan defense. He's got to make sure for some of these passes, if they're not RPOs, that he's got to try and give Clifford a little bit extra time to get the ball down the field.
Well, I would start the offense with possession throws.
Yeah.
Against this defense. I don't want to put Clifford in situations ever on 3rd and 8. I would run give up plays. I really would. I just would run give up plays and punt.
Yeah.
And use Barney Moore and just get rid of the ball, live to fight another day. That's what we're talking about. But early downs, I'd let him throw the ball because I don't think Michigan's intermediate and deep defense is all that good. I don't. I think they're okay. And that's the weakness of this defense. That's the weakness of the entire Michigan team, if you ask me, because they're pretty solid all the way around otherwise. Mm-hmm. I think they can be attacked. I don't think they've been attacked. Indiana has a horrible situation with this offensive line. They can't protect Connor Bazelak, the transfer from Missouri. That was just they can't really do anything against them. I thought Maryland did pretty well, and that's an example of how they can be exposed. Now, Maryland's wideout crew is a lot better than Penn State's. I mean, they got weaponry and they've got a better quarterback. I think we both agree. But it is an example of how that back seven can be exposed, and I think they can. You might as well go after it. You've got an experienced quarterback. He's got confidence, even if it's sometimes irrational. He does have confidence, maybe more than he should, but he does have that. If you can get him going with early down throws, I think that's the way to go. I do. And I don't want him throwing on third and long ever.
Right. Yeah, I think Sean from about 15 yards he's good. I think in the intermediate range, and he's good near the line of scrimmage. He struggled throwing deep balls this year. Other than that throw to Tinsley in the Auburn game, down the right side early in that game, I think he's a guy that has not been. I expected him to be a little bit better now that he's 24 down the field. Now maybe it's that the Penn State receivers aren't as good as getting separation that Jahan Dotson did. And remember Jahan Dotson's catch radius, Dave. There were some incredible catches he made where he probably shouldn't have been able to catch the ball.
Just get it near him. Yeah.
I don't know if these Penn State guys are quite like that, but I will say this: if they can scheme up some deep shots and the Penn State receivers have a step down the field on a vertical shot, Sean Clifford has got to put the ball on the money in this game. If he's going to miss a shot, it's going to be an issue. He cannot miss open throws.
Let's look at what he can do and what he's proven he can do. And I think he can do that in this game because I think Michigan's intermediate defense is its weakness. I don't think their linebackers are all that great in coverage. I think you can throw to Brenton Strange. I think you can throw to Parker Washington. I think you can throw to Mitchell Tinsley on turn-ins. But between the hashes, intermediate, I think that's the way to go on first and second down, and you don't want any part of this defense on third and long. I'm telling you, I would kick on third down. I would do a Woody Hayes. If they have a 3rd and 9, just kick the ball away. Quick kick. Honest to God, they should bring that back. And that's what the way this game could be. It could end up being a old style 1970s Woody and Bo, Paterno and Carr possession game where the kicking game is huge and field position is huge. One of those old style games that we thought we were done with. I don't think we're done with it. I don't think we're done with it in this game. I think that's the way this game's going to be.
Dave, who will be Penn State's most effective running back in this game and why?
I think it should be Katron Allen because he's going to have to get tough yards. I don't know if they can prove they can run on these guys, but if they can back them off a little bit, that would be great. I don't know that they can depend on that. But Katron Allen's going to be a very important guy, I think, in this game because he falls forward. He's physical. This is going to be a physical game. He's shown me that he can be tough in tough quarters. I would start him and run Singleton as a changeup back in the second quarter, but they haven't done that. I don't know why they haven't done that.
Hey, Dave, they had a bye week. You never know. You never know what's going to happen with a bye week. I agree with you. I think Allen the last 3 games. I know that Singleton was electric at Auburn on those 2 long runs, but I think the more consistent runner the last 3 games has clearly been Katron Allen. And I think this is a game where you value, especially early in the game, consistency over a guy that needs like 7 or 8 carries to get loose on one of them. So. That's not a knock against Nick Singleton. I just think that this is a tough environment, and I think yards are going to be hard to come by on the ground on a consistent basis. And I think Allen's a little bit better at that right now at this stage of his career. I mean, but you're right. Singleton, he did all of his damage basically in the third quarter of that Auburn game. He was real quiet for 2 quarters, and then he went off in that third quarter and early in the fourth quarter.
That's the way I would play him. When you play him when the defense is a little bit tired, get him in there, and he's fresh, and he can be electric.
Featuring him in the second half when they're tired.
Yeah. Or 5 minutes into the second quarter, he can bust a big one, and that's when he should be in there when everyone's a little bit gassed. In my mind, Allen. If you can get 3 or 4 yards on first down out of him, fine. But I would start throwing the ball. That is where Penn State has an advantage on this particular defense. I think you have to play the opponent in this game.
If you remember last year in the game, Kevon Lee had probably his best game against Michigan. 20 carries, I think, for 88 yards. And I think the 2 freshman runners, especially Allen, are a little bit better at getting those yards than Kevon Lee is. So I don't think it's impossible to expect Penn State to run on Michigan's defense. It just might not come right away. And let's see if Franklin and Yurcich stay patient with the run. I think they will, but they might have to. It might not be until late in the second quarter or early in the third quarter that they really start to see the results.
I would throw on early downs, not long balls, just into the intermediate zone. I would use Brenton Strange a lot. He's been dependable. He can. I think they have an advantage at tight end in this game. They should use it. Brenton Strange against the Michigan's linebackers should be a big plus for Penn State.
It's a joke, Dave. It's a joke. Strange.
You know what? No. Whoa, genius. You know what's you? My wife is going. Please don't do that again.
Howard Eskin. That was a Howard Eskin reference for any of you people listening or watching. That's all we were trying.
You know what's a joke? You're a joke. Now don't call my show. Don't call my show. Anyway, all right.
No, you have to do the closeout. It's like
okay. Yeah. Get out of here. And then WIP time 3:37.
That makes the whole bit. All right, Davo.
I haven't. I'm not finished. And then he goes, "I want to say a few words about our friends at Muscalis Furs."
You have to do that for Johnny McGonigal. He's going to lose his mind.
Blows him up and then says just seamlessly right into the promotion. I love it. Yeah, there was no one like.
Yeah, I'm going to make you do it for Johnny. I think he might pass out if he heard you do that.
All right, it's choice time. It's pick time.
You go first.
I'm picking Penn State, which is bad news for all Penn State fans, but I am. I'm just not necessarily that impressed with Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know what we have in J.J. McCarthy. I know what we have in Sean Clifford. And I believe in Penn State's defense in this particular game. I don't think Michigan has any fireworks really going on offense except for Blake Corum. And I don't think there's anyone in that receiving core the Penn State secondary can't guard. And I'm going with Penn State in a upset. They are +7. I'd certainly go with them against the line, wouldn't you? Don't you think that +7 is crazy?
Yeah, I was thinking it would be in the 3 to 4 range.
Yeah, me too.
So,
I'm going with them 21 to 19.
All right. Let's name some of your favorite Michigan quarterbacks from the last 20 years. I'll go first. John Navarre. You're next.
You can't take him. You can't take him.
Somebody else. Come on.
I have to be able to say it like the press box announcer. Michigan quarterback. That was a 4-yard gain for John Navarre.
Is there anyone else that compares to him in your mind as far as a typical Michigan quarterback?
Well, we had
Chad Henne.
We had Todd Collins, who was hoisted a clipboard for how many years in the NFL? You realize how many years he was on NFL rosters?
Yeah, like 38.
Yeah, man. I mean, he had like the greatest NFL career ever. I think he was like a 12-year NFL pro and played in like 18 games. He was Kerry Collins' contemporary.
All right, I'll go next.
Dreisbach. Let me see. Elvis Gerbach.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. These are.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit further back. I just like saying John Wangler.
That was a loaf of Wonder Bread, that guy. Yeah, that was the era of Bo. How could you forget Chad Henne, your boy?
I feel like Penn State fans tense up when we mention that game. That name because of what happened in 2005, and I think they would think we were piling on.
Someday when I retire, we'll tell that whole story about how we broke the Chad Henne story.
Spanish.
Yeah, a couple other people have to retire too.
Yeah, I know. I think my favorite Michigan quarterback of all time is Rick Leach. I just really liked him as a kid growing up.
Rick Leach went to my wife's high school in Flint.
He was a lefty, and he was ahead of his time at Michigan. He could really do some things. Did he play with Anthony Carter?
You know what else was great about him? He was not afraid to talk back at Bo Schembechler.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave Bo a lot of crap. And he was a beloved character in Michigan football because of that, because he stood up to Bo.
I thought he was a good player too. He was
man, he was for that era.
Yeah.
That was the 10-year war era, and he was so much better than every other quarterback in that era, except for Cornelius Green, who is an underrated Ohio State quarterback, but didn't play for Michigan. There's a lot of guys you can mention. Dennis Brown. That's way before your time. Yeah.
All right, I got to give my score. I said Michigan 26, Penn State 20. Like I said, it's a big game for Penn State. I think it's even bigger for Sean in his 6th year. It's big for James Franklin in year 9, Dave. I mean, to never have beaten a top 5 team. You can say what you want about the rankings. The rankings are the rankings. He hasn't beaten a top 5 team on the road. 0-6. It's a real big game for James too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what this is about. Is you hate Penn State. You know that Flounders guy. He doesn't even like Penn State. You don't even like Penn State. He'll tell you if you get him off the camera.
I bet you all of Penn State's fans are aware of all those records I mentioned as well. So
you think maybe they are? Yeah. There's another one that you could have used for ammo that I dug up this week. Do you know what Penn State is after a bye week under Franklin?
2-5.
3-5. Yeah, 3-5.
Well, they didn't have a bye week in 2020?
Yeah, but they had 2 in 2014 when they went to Ireland.
Oh, really?
Really, yeah.
What was the first one? No, they were off. They didn't play the next week after Ireland.
I think it's not on my Phil Steele that I got here. Hang on. I want to look it up now. Right. It's right here. Right. They had 2 different buys, and of course, I can't find Penn State. When I need Penn State, I'm going through every. Here we go. I think it was after UMass. And they beat
then they got pounded by Northwestern.
That's right. That was one of them. That's one of them.
And they lost at Michigan, didn't they? Was that the other one?
Yeah, they had a bye. No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about UMass. Oh. It was before Michigan and after Michigan. Michigan was bracketed by 2 buys. That's it. Isn't that weird?
They lost to both.
That's the ultimate quirk in the schedule, and they lost to both of them. Yeah,
3-5 off the bye week. Yikes!
They played very well against Ohio State that year.
They did. They had them on the ropes in OT.
Had ahead of them in overtime, weren't they?
Yeah. Right? And JT Barrett went to work like he always did against Penn State.
That's when the refs just stole it from the Lions. That's what that game was.
All right, man. I think we've given Penn State. We already gave him a Howard Eskin impersonation. I mentioned John Wangler. I think that they've had about it. And we mentioned Chad Henne. I think they've had about enough of our act.
And after all that, we didn't even mention Tom Brady. That's kind of funny.
All right, Davo. I guess I'll see you down the road.
Have a great flight. I am not making this trip for reasons we don't have to get into, but it was a travel snafu. So it's just you and Johnny and Joe.
Jumping Joe Hermit.
I'll be right back here.
All right. See you guys.